Bench Opinions. Three idiots with amateur analysis.
Okay, welcome back to Bench Opinions. The Boks squad has been revealed.
Twice in 1 week.
Twice in 1 week. We're back for more.
Well, two out of three of us. I think Moxie's unfortunately bowed out of this one. He's carrying a bit of a cold, which is cute, but shame. Hopefully he gets better soon.
Yeah. We thought we would use this opportunity to go for a second episode this week because the Boks have been revealed. And let's run through the squad. Not many changes.
No.
None in the front line, and none in the starting 15, essentially.
Except Ox and Chair coming back in,
Ox coming in, who was originally supposed to be playing last week, but then couldn't. What do you think of that? We were expecting a couple of changes, but...
I think, first of all, the squad picks itself at the moment. The team picks itself. And I think if you'd told us that a month ago that coming into this Argentina test match, the squad, the starting lineup has been so good and so convincing, and there's been such a development that the team picks itself. I think we probably would have been skeptical, and we would have bitten your right hand off for that. And I think that's a super positive sign. I think even the fact that people like Ethan Hooker and Damon Willemse were carrying knocks after that first Argentina game, for them still to be picked is a sign that Rassie seems to be very convinced by the starting 15, and slowly but surely there seems to be a shift towards what maybe the side will look like moving forward. So that's very positive, and I think any coach worth their weight in gold would want to create that kind of scenario where there's not too much tinkering, which is something that actually we've become quite used to under Rassie, and it seems like he's happy enough now to kind of keep going with the guys that are putting their hands up.
So in Rassie's press conference with Ian Etzebeth, he has answered this question already, but I wanted to get your insights on it. Do you think this is our strongest... I'm not going to go with 23. Is this our strongest starting 15?
I think currently with injuries considered, I think yes. Obviously, without trying to be too subjective here, I think I would prefer Damien Willemse to be the number 12 moving forward. I think he offers us a lot of the skill set that Damien Delendi offers us in terms of his physicality, but definitely has the ability to turn things on a sixpence, turn people inside out, which Damien Delendi maybe just doesn't have. But other than that, I think definitely these are the guys that have put their hands up. These are the guys that have gotten the biggest opportunities. And for that reason, I think it's very hard to argue with it. And again, ideally is a scenario where you don't have question marks floating above players. And of course, Rassie will look to grow the amount of players that do this and the amount of options. But I think currently it's really good for us to understand in this philosophy, in what we're trying to achieve, in what the brand of rugby we're trying to play, and also in the context of giving players minutes, there's a clear 15 that seem to be our best. And it's very exciting, particularly because we've spoken about, first of all, I think the next element will be, how do you bleed even more players? How do you give even more players that a lot of people will argue deserve a shout? How do you give them minutes? Kewan Horn comes to mind, given Apelele Fassi's injuries. But then also the guys that are out injured in that loose trio, particularly Hanekom, Ulrich Loh, Jasper Wiese at the moment is our only real 8. And then you've also got people like Evan Roos, he just continues to knock on the door for that 8th man berth. So I think that, given all of that, it's very exciting and a very position of strength for the Springboks. We have to always think back to that first game against the Wallabies and the aftermath of that. It was pretty scary at the time, but it's crazy how the development has happened. What do you think about the squad? I mean, I think maybe, I don't know what you want to do, yes, but maybe next we touch on the bench, because that to me is quite interesting.
Yeah, well, I mean, generally about the squad, and also maybe just to answer my own question there, with regards to, is this our best starting 15? Rassie has flat out said no, it is not. He said there are injuries, obviously those need to be considered, but on the other hand, he said we have had to have had a very quick turnaround due to flying over to London, and so he was going for consistency rather than tinkering. He would have liked to have tinkered, but he said it just wasn't possible with the 2-day training week, I think, that they had. He said he would have liked to have had Andre have a couple of minutes as well, maybe off the bench, something like that. But I think the squad as it currently is, I agree with you. I would also move Damien Willemse to 12. You would want to have somebody like Apelele Fassi then at 15. but you can't argue it's a very, very strong squad nonetheless, and something that's pushing everybody else in the squad to be their best, especially those old veteran guys in the backline who have been held out of the squad now for the last 2 weeks. I see, Jesse Creel on the bench. Him and Damien Dialenda together were our like solid center pairing. Now, both of them sort of in question because the guys coming through are just so strong.
Just to come back to the comment about Rassie, I like that of him as well. I think Rassie's the kind of guy that even if he did believe in his heart of hearts that this was the best 15, I don't think at this stage that's something that he would want to say or something that he'd want to admit. And I think it exactly because of what you said. You've got people like stalwarts like Jesse Creel coming back into the frame now in this 23-man squad who essentially have to play their way back into the side. And by Rassie keeping the door open and saying, I don't think this is our best 15, you will probably see some of these guys have their backs up. Both the guys within the starting 15 who have been able to make this the starting lineup, but as well as the guys knocking on the door. And that's, I think, one of the unique pillars to Rassie's ability to create, I've said it 100 times, an atmosphere of merit and really saying, hey guys, the door's never closed to anyone. And yeah, you mentioned the experience on the bench. I think that's interesting. I think the bench says a lot about where we might be within this phase of this building of the squad looking towards 2027 and the Rugby World Cup in Australia. I think the first thing is, Bongi Mbonambi coming back. I think it's quite a surprise. Of course, we're thin at hooker, but Jan-Hendrik Wessels would have provided you with that option without a doubt. I think maybe Boan Fanta's injury actually means Mbonambi comes in because I'm pretty sure that if Boan had been fit, he would have been on the bench and Jan-Hendrik Wessels would have been able to cover at hooker as well as prop, need be. So I think that's it. But I also I wonder if slowly but surely there's a sort of swan song moment starting to go on or continuing from what we've seen at Eden Park and now here, giving someone like Bongi Mbonambi, who's been a great servant, also been someone who's captained the side in the past when we've needed him most, bring him in and giving him his last chance saloon. It's a guess, it's a hypothetical, but I think that points towards maybe another set of changes going into the November test matches. And I think everyone's head is, anyone who's on the periphery of this squad now, their head is on the chopping block, but at the same time with Rassie saying, hey, I don't think this is our best side, there's definitely an ability to kind of force your way back in.
Yeah. Let's actually go through the squad just to remind everybody who is in it. And maybe you can just give a quick comment if you think that person is going to make the 2027 World Cup or not. Let's start. Oxenchair, number one.
If you fit Oxenchair, no one can argue with that selection. I think anyone in that squad will know that he's the best in his position probably in the world. So, and I think he makes the squad.
Yeah. Malcolm Marx.
A couple of question marks. I think luckily around him that there's no questions around his fitness. I think he's a guy that really stays fit. I think he's had a couple of big injuries, but he generally seems to be someone that has a high level of fitness. So I think he makes the squad.
Thomas Tutoy as starting 15.
I think it's very impressive that he continues to play Wilco Louw out of that side. I think that says a lot. And I think for that reason, he'll definitely be there and he'll definitely be in the reckoning come 2027. And I think he's really risen to the occasion now in the last few weeks.
Yeah. Eben Etzebeth.
Look, age, I think, would be one of the things that you question, but I think Rassie has been very clear about managing his minutes and Eben continues to impress. So I think he'll definitely be in the squad for 2027. Whether he starts is, I guess, something that depends on his fitness, his age, the body gets tired. It's a tough sport.
Yeah. On his fitness, Rassie actually says that he reckons Eben is the fittest player in the squad.
Look, I mean,
which is an impressive statement if you've got the likes of like a Ches and Colby in your team.
He keeps delivering, so let's hope. I mean, he'd be huge for us.
Yeah. At 5, we have Ruan Nokia.
Ruan, I think, is one of the guys that has been most improved in the sense that I think he was left out of one of the squads in 2024 to some surprise, and due to injuries he got his chance. And I think his ability to cover quite a lot of positions in the forward pack.
He's a like for like with Franco Mostert, I find.
Franco Mostert, and I think there's elements of Peter Steff to him, particularly with his engine. I think Peter Steff will make the next, we'll get to him now, but I think he'll make the next squad as well. It'll just be interesting to see what other lock options emerge. And how the guys come back from injury in the loose trio. But Ruan's been phenomenal, and I think he's benefited off maybe the absence of someone like Lut Diago for sure. Yeah. I think he's brilliant.
Ruan over Erge starting as a starting 15 best squad?
I think with Erge, what's detrimental to his himself is that I think he's maybe just not. He's that flair player that offers you so much off the bench, and I think he's someone that can exploit tiring legs in the second half. And at the one hand, it's a massive strength for Rassie to have in the squad, but on the other hand, maybe it's a little bit detrimental to him.
Yeah.
But he did come on really early in Wellington because of Lutiaga's injury and was phenomenal for 60 plus minutes. So I think it's hard to question his engine. So it'll be interesting to see. But again, it's just a battle for and a competition for places, and that's exactly the kind of environment you want to get the best out of this side.
Open side flanker and captain, my captain, Siya Kolisi.
Every time that people doubt him, I think I get quite frustrated at the doubters. I think I think the fact that he's become such a philosophical, symbolic figure in world rugby means that his actual work on the pitch often gets maybe just overlooked. A lot of people, particularly non-Springbok fans, saying, "Yeah, he's not a world-class player," but I think you don't have a career like he has had, and I don't think you get into that side if you're not showing up every week. And I think in the green and gold, particularly, is when Siya Kolisi plays his best rugby. And what more could you want? It's hard for me. He's one of the tougher ones for me to predict if he gets to that next World Cup. But it'll depend 100% on injuries. He's not someone who's had it light with injuries. He seems to pick up quite a lot of knocks here and there. Also bigger injuries, but he managed to miraculously come back.
It seems like he can snap his ankle and he will be back in 3 weeks' time because he tries out some new medicine.
But I think it's easy to predict that if he's fit, and he's still playing rugby at a similar level, he's in that squad for 2027. What his role will be, we'll have to see.
We've got great open side flankers. I mean, Michael van Staden, for example, is a perfect example. But as you say, philosophically, what he brings to the team, he makes everybody around him step up that 10%, which no other player is able to do.
And my prediction is that kind of the sort of his play maybe will, as his play sort of diminishes, his philosophical role will just grow. And that's why I see him being in the squad for 27.
Right. Then, one of the best rugby players of our generation, Pieter-Steph du Toit.
Yeah, we should be hoping and praying from now on that he makes that squad.
Yeah.
Because I think, no superlatives. Brilliant rugby player, all-round skill set. A lot of people say not celebrated as much as he should be. I think we celebrate him just as much as he should be, and I think he shows it in his rugby week in regard. And that's exactly the kind of player you want. He goes about his business every single week for the last, since I can remember.
Yeah.
So,
Doesn't showboat, doesn't do any sort of fancy stuff. He just grinds it out, Then a guy who his only flaw is his discipline, Jasper Wiese. He making it? He's our top guy.
I mean, look, if anyone questioned the importance of having a specialized eighth man in a squad, the Springboks over the last 2 months have been the perfect example. Hoping and praying he never headbutts another person again. I think he'll be in for a lot of competition in that eighth man role. I think that's why he'll be kicking himself even more, because he's obviously had some great games, but I think if he'd gone through the whole South African winter period now, test match season, I think he would have just cemented that place even more, and would have been even harder for people like Ulrich Loh or Cameron Hanekom to kick him off his perch.
Or even Jean-Luc Dupré, because he was supposed to play at eighth for a couple of games. So moving over to the back line, we have got Kobus Reinach as scrum half. Is he our first choice scrum half?
I think in the context of where the tournament is at the moment, I think so, yes. I think Grant Williams might be a little bit of overkill / maybe a little bit still inexperienced. I think Kobus brings a leadership element to the game that you don't get from Grant Williams, and it's nothing that I hold against Grant Williams. I just don't think he's that personality. He's a guy that just does his thing and is electrifyingly quick and offers you that X factor, but at the same time does fantastic basics as a scrum half. But I think Kobus at the moment, in the context of where this team is, and maybe an element of inexperience, or I wouldn't even say inexperience. I just a little bit less safe rugby being played. I think Kobus offers you a little bit more experience in that number 9 to offset what's kind of going on just outside of him with Sasha Feinberg and Ngomazulu and the rest of the backline tossing the ball around. I don't think he makes the next World Cup squad, though, personally. I think it's just a stretch too far, I think. But at the same time, we'll have to see who emerges. I think a lot of hope and on players like Hashim Pede to see if they can really come into the reckoning. But yeah, for now, I think trying to get the job done at Twickenham against Argentina is exactly the right guy.
Scrum halves in our squad is really not an issue. I mean, between Grant Williams and Kobus Reinach, you've got some of the best scrum halves out there. And then you've obviously got Morné van den Berg, who's coming through the ranks. Faf de Klerk is still a great player. He's right on the wings waiting.
Ambrose Papier continues to have great games. And I think I think it'll be hard to ignore Ambrose if the Bulls under Ackerman can go on to win the URC or do great things in the URC. I think as maybe someone like Quibus starts to get a little bit older, I think it's too hard to ignore players like Ambrose Papier.
Herschel Yankees actually had a great season in the URC last year as well. So there's a whole bunch of guys who are creating that internal pressure to keep these guys honest and fighting fit. So that's always good to have. Then number 10, some say, is he the new Dan Carter, Sasha Feinberg, and Ngozulu?
I love how riled up people are with the comparisons. I think I saw a comment that someone, a pretty big rugby account on X, kind of saying, I can't believe people are comparing him to Dan Carter, and then listing all of Dan Carter's achievements and his career. And I was just like, everyone relax.
It's actually more of a compliment to Dan Carter that people are aspiring to be like him. And
I think that there are parallels, but no one's saying he is the new Dan Carter. Like, everyone understands, and I think we're the first to say, like, incredible player, but he's got to show it week in, week out. He's got to stay fit. But I think that no one stops him from being in that 10 jersey if he continues to grow the way he's grown.
Yeah. Even Marnie Libok?
Yeah, I think...
He had a great game as well. Well as in Wellington.
For sure. I think, unfortunately, Marnie might fall victim to what happened in the last World Cup, which is sort of two different teams being played. I think a similar tactic will be deployed by Rassie, I would assume, for the sort of pool games that they see as more crucial than the other games, and playing two different sides. And I think Marnie, unfortunately, will probably just, as we move to the knockout phase, Marnie maybe just loses out there. But a fantastic option off the bench. And I think with the new brand and identity and DNA of the side, probably a better option in terms of continuity than Handre.
Yeah.
And that's no disrespect to Handre at all. I just think the way this team has moved, it's favored your Sasha Feinberg and Ngomazulus and your Manis.
Right.
And now you've got two of them, because I see a lot of similarities in the two of them.
Absolutely. But Handre, I think, is still going to the next World Cup.
I agree. I think he will definitely go, yeah.
I think as both an advisory role for the younger fly halves, as well as having somebody like Morné Steyn come in those like clinch moments,
100%.
Solid under in front of the post. So I think he's definitely making the World Cup next year as well.
We'll have to take 3 fly halves, and there's no one really else in the picture at the moment, and no one that offers what he offers. So.
Exactly. Let's move over to the wingers. We have Ethan Hooker on the left wing.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens with Ethan Hooker as Kurtley Arendse comes back into the fold. I think it's very difficult to keep Kurtley out of the side for various reasons, but also just because he's brilliant. And I think Rassie's a big fan of Kurtley's. I think Ethan's done a lot, and respect to the guy, he's done a lot to come straight into that position and make it his own. I think wingers, establishing yourself as a winger in Test rugby, I would say is probably one of the toughest things to do, because you're needed in moments and in instances, and maybe your hard work off the ball or the basics you do sometimes can be a little overlooked, but he's done all of it well. And I think for that reason, hats off to him. And again, fantastic competition for places, because I would say that at left wing, Mapimpi's going to fade out. I think massive love and respect to him, but he's also 35 now. I think also you're going to inevitably lose pace, and at wing, that's a little bit of a death sentence. But yeah, competition for places. Kurtley's going to know that Ethan Hooker's breathing down his neck. And it also keeps Ethan in and around the squad to possibly also be someone that plays at outside center if need be. Yeah. I think that would be something interesting too. He definitely makes the next World Cup squad for me, for sure.
Yeah. Also as you said, I think his preferred position is actually outside center, but obviously offering that versatility to Rassie is something that's very important to him. So I also definitely see him making the next World Cup, or getting into the World Cup team. Let's actually go to the other wing before we move over to the center pairing. Cheslin Colby on the right wing.
Don't have to spend too much time, I think.
He speaks for himself.
Yeah, and I think if he's fit, he makes the next squad.
Right.
Again, with him also, with getting a bit older, let's see what kind of role he takes up. But I think even if he loses a yard of pace, I don't think that influences his play.
But even in there, managing minutes, then you've got Ethan Hooker, you've got Kurtley Arendse,
Edward van der Merwe, you've got Kanan Moody, if he really needs to, can also move out to wing. So I think, giving Cheslin the perfect environment in terms of minutes and managing him is not going to be an issue. And I think, therefore, I wouldn't be surprised if he starts again in that next World Cup.
And number 12, inside center, Damien Dierlende, not Damien Willemse.
Yeah, I mean,
I phrased it like that because I knew exactly what your comments are going to be.
I think he makes the next World Cup squad because he is the younger of the two between him and Jesse Krill and him. I think he's younger. Is he younger? I don't know. Anyway, I think they're very similarly aged.
I think he's older, actually.
Oh, could be older. Yeah, then I have question marks over him. I think he's one of the guys that possibly loses out in that next World Cup squad. Just because of the options and because of the style of play. Damien's been a fantastic servant, and I think sort of in the previous iterations of World Cup winning sides has offered you exactly what we needed. Crash ball and just monumental in defense, and Rassie's very clearly said that that's not the way he thinks the next World Cup's going to be won. And I think, unfortunately for Damien Dierlende, it just means that he probably loses out over the next couple of years. But fantastic player, and I'm hoping the other Damien comes into that 12.
Yeah. Do you think Damien Dierlende is going to make it to the World Cup in a broader squad?
I don't think so. No, and we can get to Jesse, but I don't think Jesse does either.
Okay. Well, next on the list is Kanan Moody at outside center.
Yeah, I think I'll put $10 on him starting any knockout games, particularly at that next World Cup at 13. I think he's put his hands up so many times. His experience as a 22-year-old is just unreal. Yeah. And for that reason, I just think he's a no-brainer, and he'll be not even in his prime yet when we get to the next World Cup. So who knows what he could go on to do. Yeah,
he must have something like between 15 and 20 test caps already.
I think comfortably 20. I think
at the age of 22, that's incredible.
Yeah.
And then at fullback we have Gaza, Damien Willemse.
Yeah. He'll be at the next World Cup, and I hope for him it's not at fullback. And I think the more time he spends at fullback, the more detrimental it is to his plan or where he should be, and also the Springboks. I think we need to try. That's why I hope Rassie is switched onto that idea and looks to bring in another bona fide fullback option. I spoke about him, Kevin Horn. I hope he's listening. Rassie, let the guy play some minutes because I think he's ready. And even if it is as an option at 15, I think that's where we need to fill the draw a little bit with options so that people like Damien Willemse aren't always sort of the square peg in the round hole. Although he had a great game against Argentina in the last game. He was solid as a rock.
Yeah. I mean, playing him at fullback obviously offers him a little bit more space to then run, whereas at inside center, he's not quite as free to move, although he still does, but it also offers him the option at second receiver or even first receiver, depending on how they want to play that. So it brings him closer to the ball, but then it also kind of boxes him in terms of how much space he has. So it's like pros and cons. His defensive work is maybe not as solid as Damien Dierlende. Maybe something he would need to work on going forward. But yeah, I also would prefer him at inside center.
The reality is, though, if we want him to become a 12, he's going to need minutes at 12. And I think the one doesn't happen without the other. I think if we don't fill that fullback role, you're just going to consistently see him filling in. And we do need another inside center option. And Esterhazen is there, of course, but I think in the ilk of Damien Willemse, there's not really anyone there. And that's why we should celebrate him and allow him to develop into the 12 that he can be. And that only happens if we stop this sort of stopgap use of him, which is also a compliment to him because his ability to do both those equally, I would say, is also interesting.
As the episode's already running much longer than we intended to, I'm just going to quickly go through the bench, and then you can give your overall thoughts on that. So at hooker, we have Bongi Mbonambi, Jan-Henrik Wessels as prop, together with Volko Low, Erja Sneeman as our lock reserve, Quagga Smith as our back row reserve, Grant Williams as the scrum half reserve, Mani Libok backline, and Jesse Creel backline.
I'm going to make a big call here. I think Bongi and Jesse don't make the next World Cup squad. I think Bongi is clear. I think he's 36, 35, 36 already. I think he's pretty old, and therefore I think you've seen a decline in his play for the Sharks. I mean, albeit in a Sharks side that were terrible last season, even though they made the semi-finals of the URC. But I think you're slowly going to start seeing the guys kind of have their little last hurrah and move out. I think Jesse, unfortunately, he's just been outplayed. Played out of the side now through Kane and Moody, and I think the options that are continuing to grow mean that he probably loses out a little bit. And I don't see him making the next World Cup squad.
Who else do we have at outside centre? I mean, you can't just throw everybody out of the squad because they're 34, 35.
Remember, I don't mean immediately. I'm just looking at 2027.
Yeah.
So I think you'll see Jesse around, particularly for his leadership. I think it's no coincidence that he's been brought into the squad for this week with the Rugby Championship on the line, along with Bongi, with their leadership credentials. I think that goes without saying. But I think someone like Ethan Hooker is the second 13 option going forward long term. That's kind of my prediction for that. And I just don't see how Jesse and Damien Lendi fit into the very clear shift to the type of rugby we want to play. And I think therefore, and look, they're not ready yet, but someone like Lorenzo Julius, fantastic option. Someone who's never really gotten a chance is Van Wyk from the Henko van Wyk, also fantastic player, albeit an inside center, but still.
No, outside center.
Outside center. Well, there you go. So there are options. And I think in this new phase of trying to bleed new guys, I think they just lose out. I think Damien and Jesse lose out. But, I mean, it's just a prediction.
Yeah. I mean, everybody's got an opinion, as do we. That's why we're called bench opinions.
What do you think about Quagga, though?
Quagga on the bench?
No, I don't know. Just where do you see the future for Quagga?
On the bench. I think that guy is maybe one of the best impact players in world rugby. The viciousness that he brings onto the field when he comes in for the last 40, 30, 20 minutes is unreal, and he is a game changer in that sense. So if you're chasing the scoreboard, he can come in and he can do a jackal, rip the ball, he can put it in a massive tackle, he can carry guys over the try line. Or if you're leading, he can do the same. And I don't see many guys. Maybe Erje is another guy who's like that, kind of game changer type personality, but Quagga is unreal off the bench.
Yeah, and I mean I agree with that 100%. I think he also is the kind of guy that will fight tooth and nail to hold on to his spot in that side. And I think you do see it often in other teams. I'm not saying the Springboks are way more special than any other side, but in other international sides, there seems to always be natural, okay, well, now there's a new guy in that position, bring him in. And I think the personality that Quagga Smith is, he will literally fight tooth and nail to keep his position in that squad. And he's done it throughout his career. Whenever there's been a few question marks around him, he first came in as a flank, then now he's played way more time at eighth man as he comes in, but can still do the job at flank. Came thin through sevens, where anyone, particularly a forward coming in from the sevens game, is always seen with a sort of slight asterisk around their name to say, but can they really step up? And every time there's been questions asked of him, he's stepped up and he does it. And every phase we go through, it's always like, is Quagga Smith still in the reckoning? Boom. Comes in and destroys the opposition or makes 3 or 4 plays in the last 20 minutes of the game. So I agree with you 100%. And I think he's the perfect kind of guy to have around, because Hanekom, Ulrich Loh are going to come in, they're going to want spots, and he's not going to let them get anywhere near it if it's up to him.
Yeah, they'll really have to come in and prove themselves. Now knowing the team, obviously we don't know the Argentinian team, would you change your prediction? Your prediction was Springboks by 20, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I know I wouldn't change it. Yeah. And I think any hint of me maybe being slightly reserved was because I didn't know we didn't know what the injury situation was going to be, because without Willemse and Hooker playing, because they had niggles, that team looks very, very different. And now I'm very much, I think it just reaffirmed what I think. I think the Springboks will win convincingly.
Well, I think that's a great point to wrap up. I don't know how often we'll be doing these call sheet reviews, but hopefully you enjoyed that. If you did enjoy it, or if you disagree with any of our comments regarding if guys will not make it to the 2027 World Cup, please do comment below. Like and subscribe if you enjoyed this, and go check out our last video where we discussed the very, very glorious win over the Los Pumas, and hopefully we can have a repeat of that at Twickenham.
Yeah, and a quick shout out. We've grown with some subscribers in the last couple of weeks, and a lot of people commenting on the last video. So you're appreciated and you're loved, and thank you for showing us. If you think we're good, share it with everyone else who might think we're good.
Appreciate you. Thanks, guys. Bye.